Hi guys, it's me, ChazRHD, and welcome today to the qualifying watch-along for the 2021 French Grand Prix from, again, the very colourful Paul Ricard circuit in the south of France. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Hopefully, just like myself, you're looking forward to another very intriguing qualifying session in 2021. Unfortunately, qualifying is the highlight this weekend around a track like this because of how difficult it is to overtake around Paul Ricard. Normally, especially if you look at the last couple races, F1 races here at Paul Ricard. So this is going to be definitely in terms of who wins the Grand Prix, who finishes where really in that top 10. This is going to be so important for the teams and drivers, because if you qualify in a position that's way away from where you should be or need to be, but again, because how difficult it is to overtake here, it's going to be pretty tough to reclaim any lost ground. So this is going to be a very important qualifying session for, again, the teams and drivers today. And no matter what part of the world you guys are from, hopefully with me you will watch along the session, which is getting underway, as you can see, in about half an hour from now. And as well, if you're unable to watch the session because you're busy doing something, or you can't watch it because you just don't have the TV station that shows it, or you're in a country that for some reason doesn't show it at all, which is maddening, then just listen along to my commentary and I'll keep you absolutely bang up to date with everything that goes on in qualifying, who gets knocked down Q1, of course, Q2, and what happens in the top 10 shootout in qualifying 3, where of course we'll find out who will finish or start really on pole position for the Grand Prix tomorrow. Now, before we get into the teams and how they're looking based on so far, the practice we've had so far this weekend, let's first get into the results of practice 3. Now, if you did not catch practice 3 and you didn't see the practice 3 stream that I did, an hour or 2 hours ago, then here are the results of that session. The Max Verstappen, which is a usual occurrence in 2021, tops practice 3, but not by this much. He has not topped practice 3. 7.5 tenths of a second clear of the next car. The next car being a Mercedes. Absolutely incredible lap, and he has to be... I think you'd have to say he's the favourite for pole position going in here. I do still think Lewis Hamilton will get pole position, because I still believe in Lewis Hamilton. I still believe Mercedes have enough. I don't think, Mercedes are going to end up, let's say if they're not on pole, being anywhere near that far behind Max Verstappen. And I think it will be very close at the end still. But without doubt, because of that lap, Max Verstappen has got to be the favourite for pole position going into this session. And then after that, you got Bottas second. Carlos Sainz very impressively in third place. And then the rest of the top 10 is Perez, Hamilton, Norris, Alonso, Ocon, Gasly, Ricciardo. And the rest of the order: Leclerc, Giovinazzi, Stroll, Vettel, Raikkonen, Russell, Tsunoda, Latifi, Schumacher, and Mazepin. But talking of Mercedes and Red Bull, let's get into them now. So Mercedes coming into the weekend, I thought would be the favourites, really. And I thought they would have the strongest car. And at times on Friday, it looked as though they did. Then, of course, in practice 2, Max Verstappen put in a very good lap to go just about quicker than Valtteri Bottas. And then in practice 3, as I just showed you guys, Max Verstappen was so much quicker than the Mercedes cars. So much quicker. Now, if that translates itself, that performance into qualifying, then of course big questions need to be asked as to why Mercedes are so far behind at a circuit where they should be, say if they're not in pole position, still very close to whoever does get it. So we'll have to see, of course, later on whether that pace from Verstappen will translate itself. I will say though, Mercedes are definitely as a team a lot stronger here than they were in Baku or Monaco. There's definitely a lot more grip from the Mercedes this weekend compared to what they had in Baku and Monaco. A lot more confidence, I think, overall as a team. Still not enough confidence because Lewis Hamilton has been struggling a bit so far this weekend. I mean, we've heard this before. Lewis Hamilton struggling and he still ends up on pole position. So that's why I still think Hamilton will be right there. But it's not looking as good going into qualifying from the practice sessions as I thought it would be. So there is still some concern, definitely, I think, at the team. And again, after that lap that Max Verstappen put in, I think really it's going to be... The drivers are going to have to be mistake-free and at their absolute best, really, to beat Verstappen and Red Bull today. Because again, Verstappen, great lap. He's clearly driving at probably the best he's ever been in terms of his level. Red Bull are very, very strong right now, especially in that middle sector where it's power dominant and the Honda power unit is really helping Red Bull on that Mistral straight and also through the second part of the middle sector as well. The Mercedes are going to have to really pull out all the stops if they're going to get pole position here. I still think they will. I still believe in Lewis Hamilton, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be very, very tough. And another thing to point out, though, that I forgot to mention in practice 3 is that Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton before the weekend and for this weekend have swapped chassis. So that is why Valtteri Bottas so far this weekend has been quicker. Now, will that translate itself into qualifying? Again, I don't think so. But if it does translate itself into qualifying, then we do know the reasons why. So, yeah, we'll keep an eye on that in the session. And when it comes to Red Bull, it's weird with Red Bull because I don't know if they do genuinely have a quicker car or if it's just Max Verstappen being so damn quick. Because Sergio Perez, no disrespect, is nowhere near Max Verstappen really on, pure pace so far this weekend. So again, it's very hard to say whether Red Bull are just genuinely quicker so far this weekend or whether, Verstappen over a single lap around a track like this is just so good. It's hard to say right now. And that's what I mean. It's hard to say whether Verstappen ultimately will come out on top, not just in this qualifying session coming up, but also the weekend overall. Because again, I'm not sure really what the real pace of the Red Bull car is this weekend. If Sergio Perez, let's say Max Verstappen does get pole position, if Perez was to qualify second or third, then I think you'd have to say the Red Bull car is quicker than the Mercedes because that's, that'd be enough to showcase that. But if Perez continues how he's been so far this weekend, which is not in the top 3 and nowhere near Verstappen, then I guess you'd have to point in terms of Verstappen getting pole, you'd have to point it towards, obviously the Red Bull car being good, but Verstappen just being completely at one with his car and being at his absolute peak right now. He still has ways to go. He's still pretty young, still has plenty of years, I think, until he hits his absolute peak. But in terms of, if you compare him right now to the, Max Verstappen of 2017 or 2016, Max Verstappen now is much, much better and really formidable at the moment in Formula 1. So we'll see what they can do. Sergio Perez, I think his aim has got to be a top 5. Like I said in practice 3 in that stream, Sergio Perez does not have a good record at Paul Ricard. The Red Bull car, again, it's still difficult to say whether it is the Red Bull car that's, say, the reason why Max Verstappen is in P1 in practice 3 and making him so quick. So, again, I think 4th or 5th, realistically, for Perez would be a good result. Of course, if he could qualify in the top 3, that would be great. It really, really would. But again, realistically, considering his history around this circuit, I don't think we can really expect that from Sergio Perez. But like I said a moment ago, or a few moments ago, Max Verstappen is the favourite for pole position without doubt. After that lap in practice 3, if he can keep that up and Mercedes don't gain a load of speed in qualifying, going to be tough. Going to be very tough for anyone to beat him. Now let's get on to some of the midfield teams. First off, Ferrari. Now, in practice 1 and practice 2, Ferrari weren't that quick. They looked as though they were, well, obviously slower than Mercedes and Red Bull, which they still look as though they are. But they were also looked as though they were probably slower than the Alpine team as well. But in practice 3, looked as though it was probably more so Ferrari faster than Alpine. And Carlos Sainz, at the end of the session, ending up going into 3rd place, which was a spectacular lap and a great performance from Sainz. Hopefully can deliver that in qualifying. Of course, Ferrari's normally their peak performance during a weekend is in qualifying. So if we're going to see something great from Ferrari this weekend, it's going to be coming up within the next hour or so. Yeah, Ferrari do look stronger, definitely today after yesterday. There's definitely an improvement there. I don't know if it's because they're just pushing harder because now they have to use the engine mode in practice 3 and for the rest of the weekend that they're going to use for the rest of the weekend. I don't know if it's because of that or whether they have genuinely made improvements on their car. We'll have to see in qualifying. But Carlos Sainz looking very quick. Charles Leclerc is also looking quick. Practice 3 didn't quite show it. He didn't quite just get the lap together. That's why he finished down in P11. I think he can go quicker, honestly, than Carlos Sainz. So, still, you should expect Charles Leclerc to still be right up there, especially towards the end of qualifying. And I think there is still definitely a chance of a Ferrari qualifying in the top 3, which, if they could, it really could boost their chances massively of a podium. Because, again, it's very difficult to overtake here, and as long as they get a good start, then again, them being overtaken, I mean, it's possible, but it's difficult. So again, qualifying, if they can get a 3rd or 4th, something like that, very high chance they can end up coming away from the race with the same result basically as qualifying, if not a tad better than this session coming up. Just want to update you guys though about some news with Ferrari that I saw in preparation for this stream. The sporting director, I believe, Laurent Marquis, has come out and basically announced that Ferrari have stopped full development or any development on this 2021 car, and they are now fully concentrating and developing the 2022 car. So what you have with Ferrari is what you see. They're not going to be improving anymore because they're not going to try to, which I can understand. Of course, in 2022, they want that year to be the year where they're back at that consistent race-winning level. If they kept developing this year's car, they probably could win a couple Grand Prix because they have had, 2 pole positions this season. So there's definitely potential there for Ferrari this season to win a Grand Prix or 2. But if they can use that extra time to make the next year's car even better and, again, get back up to that consistent race-winning championship level, then it is absolutely the right decision. But I still think, like I said, I still think Ferrari are going to be strong this season because when we get to certain Grand Prix where the certain tracks suit them more, say tracks with slower corners, the Mexican Grand Prix, if that does go ahead, is one where I think Ferrari could be very strong around there because of the final sector and even the first sector in Mexico City. Again, don't count out Ferrari despite the development not being continued on this year's car from now on. With McLaren are looking better than yesterday, but it's not looking as good, I would say, as Ferrari. Their fight, by the looks of it, is probably with Alpine and AlphaTauri. I think they are probably ahead of AlphaTauri, but it's still going to be close. And then with Alpine, I think, again, that's probably their main rival. Alonso and Ocon, of course, we'll get into later. They're looking very quick in the Alpine. McLaren, not McLaren, looking, again, better than yesterday. I wouldn't say they're looking strong. I think Lando Norris is yet again looking strong, but I wouldn't say that's necessarily because of the car. I would say that's a bit of both. I think the car, it's still pretty decent in terms of its performance this weekend, but I think Lando Norris's driving at the minute is making that extra difference, especially when it comes to single lap pace. And I do think we'll see Lando Norris in the top, say, 7 on the grid later on. So watch out for Lando Norris. Daniel Ricciardo did at times look better in practice 3. Didn't quite end off that well, but it's looking not as bad as I thought it would be for Ricciardo here in France. Hopefully turns out to be a good enough, considering where he is at the moment, a good enough session, which would be basically qualifying in the top 10. Something he's not done, of course, since the Spanish Grand Prix, where he had a pretty good weekend. So hopefully he can do that. But yeah, definitely McLaren's leader this weekend has got to be Lando Norris, and he will be the main man for them this weekend, as he has been, really, for the whole season. Now we'll get into the rest. Aston Martin, I think the race is really going to be their focus because I think their race pace is a lot stronger than their qualifying pace, and their qualifying pace doesn't really look as though it's much of anything, I'm afraid, this weekend. The best they could do in practice 3 was, I think, was it 13th or 14th? So yeah, I just don't see Aston Martin getting in the top 10. I just don't think they have enough of a car. They're missing about 3 to 4 tenths of a second, really, around this circuit to be up there with McLaren, Alpine, and Ferrari. So disappointing performance so far for Aston Martin. I mean, of course, I could be wrong, and they might somehow end up in the top 10, which would be amazing. But it's most likely looking like at best, again, a 13th and 14th for them. But I will say, considering how great their race pace has been as of late, especially in Baku, it was quite incredible how quick they were in the race, with not just Vettel, but Lance Stroll as well. Look out for them in the race, because I think they could cause a surprise if things go their way. For AlphaTauri, of course, they have a home driver, Pierre Gasly, who is looking very strong so far, able comfortably to get his car into the top 10 so far in all the sessions this weekend. Yuki Tsunoda is struggling a bit more than he was in Baku. I think that is a bit more, though, to do with the car performance. The car definitely not as strong this weekend as it was in Baku a fortnight ago. So I think Tsunoda's probably heading for a Q2 exit. It would be great to see him in Q3, but realistically, I don't think that's going to happen for him. But Pierre Gasly, I think, definitely gets in the top 10, and I think his main fight is probably going to be with Alonso, Ocon, Norris, maybe Ricciardo as well. But Gasly, hopefully for the AlphaTauri team, and hopefully for the home fans who are watching, and thankfully there are actually fans in attendance, which is great to see. Hopefully Gasly can put on a show, as of course he is the best French driver on the grid, and you have to say, in the last year and a half, has been probably one of the best performing drivers in Formula 1. So hopefully puts in a good performance today. And for the home team, Alpine, looking good so far. They've been consistently top 10 runners. In practice 2, they were 4th and 6th, which if they were to get that today, that would be an amazing result, which would go down so well with the French crowd. I don't think it will turn out to be that good. I think they probably will get both cars into the top 10, but I don't see them getting any cars really of theirs into the top 6 on the grid. Most likely, their fight will be over 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. Hopefully for them, 7th and 8th. But again, there's some pretty good drivers in that field where it's going to be pretty tough for them to get that strong of a result. But they do have a good car. The car very well suited to this Paul Ricard circuit. It's looked great all weekend. Probably the 4th, maybe 5th at worst best car on the grid. Say, at worst, only behind Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren, which is pretty good for Alpine. And considering where they are on the constructors relative to AlphaTauri and Aston Martin, not just in terms of position, but also points. If they could beat those two teams handsomely this weekend and score a few points, then it would be a good weekend for them. But yeah, Alpine looking strong, and if you are a French fan, an Alpine fan, or Alonso, an Ocon fan, then definitely this is a session to be excited for, because there is definitely a good possibility of a strong finish. And if, let's say, they are surprisingly quick in this session, they might even go and get their best qualifying of the season, which would be fantastic for the Alpine team and, again, the home fans. For Alfa Romeo, not looking as quick as they did yesterday. Probably, at best, say 7th best team. Only quicker than, Aston Martin, Williams and Haas. But really, their fight is going to be with Aston Martin. I just don't see them able to really seriously trouble teams like AlphaTauri, Alpine. I just don't see it at all. So, yeah, I think realistically, don't expect much. I think in the race, you'll probably see a good performance pace-wise. But, again, in terms of qualifying pace, I just don't think there's enough there for Alfa Romeo to really get excited, or their fans to really get excited about, unfortunately. And for the Williams team, Williams, yeah, the penultimate team in terms of the pecking order on the grid. Definitely quicker than Haas, but not really able to seriously compete with anyone else. I think Russell probably can get into Q2, which he's done so many times. But it's going to be tougher this weekend, I think, because this track is not really a track where the drivers can make that much of a difference. It's more so a track that, if your car's working, then, of course, the driver can make a slight difference to the performance. But because, again, the way the track is, if the car's working, then the performance of the car and driver tends to be really, quite good. But even if you're a great driver, if you're in a car that's not working around here, then you're going to have a poor result. So I think it might be a bit of a struggle, honestly, for Russell to get into Q2. Hopefully he does. It'd be great to see him in there. But I think, honestly, it'd be a bit of a surprise if he got into Q2 this time. Just because the car's not really... at least at other weekends, it was kind of, challenging Alfa Romeo or Aston Martin at times on pace, in qualifying at least. But this weekend it really doesn't seem to be the case. So, yeah, I think realistically, Williams aren't really in a position to really do any or much of anything in this session. But let me just go onto these pictures. And yeah, we have just over about 7 minutes to go until qualifying gets underway. Of course, the timer is incorrect because I do tend to start the stream about a minute before 1:30 just to make sure everything's working. So, yeah, I think this session, I think after the top, say, 3, which I do expect to be Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen, probably not in that order, but I do think it'll be those 3 in the top 3. Maybe Perez will get into 4th. But I think after that, it's going to be so exciting to see, what Ferrari can do, what Alpine can do, what McLaren can do. I think it's going to be a very exciting session, definitely for the midfield. And I think it's going to be very intriguing to see whether Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton especially can claw back the deficit in qualifying. Not just in Q3, but I'll be interested to see if they can, initially do it. Claw back the deficit, because 7.5 tenths of a second is quite a lot to make up. And I know it was only practice 3, but the only thing really they could have, say, sandbagged on is fuel. And I don't think Mercedes were running that much fuel by the looks of it. So, yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm very intrigued to see what Mercedes do in this session coming up. But keep your comments coming, guys, in the chat. And also, let me know, with about 5 minutes to go, until qualifying gets underway. Let me know, who do you think will get pole position? And also, who do you think will finish in second, third, fourth, and fifth? Give me your top 5 predictions for qualifying today in the live chat, and I'll read out as many as I can before the first meaningful laps get set in the session. So make sure to put them in the live chat to the side or down below, wherever it is. And as well, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this, because I will be live 3 times tomorrow. Firstly, for the race preview at 11 AM UK time, 3 hours before the race starts. Then, of course, I'll be live at 1:30 PM UK time for the race watch along, me and Nib, of course. And then at 7 PM UK time, I'll be live for the race review for the French Grand Prix. The schedule, as I said before, if you did not know, changing around, I think, for the better. So again, don't forget to subscribe for that content coming up and hit the notifications bell. And as well, on this video, don't forget to smash the like button and share it and the channel everywhere you can. Anyway. Let me find some other comments here if I can about the predictions. BM, I think is this the first one? Yep, it is. BM says Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen, Leclerc, Alonso for his top 5. I will say, this man on screen, great timing. It would be great to see Fernando Alonso do well, because, I mean, he's had a couple good qualifying sessions this season. Baku, he qualified, 9th, or started the race in 8th, and then in Bahrain, I think he started the race in 8th as well. But most of the time, his qualifying has been poor, and it's led to a poor race result, or a race result that's not quite good enough because of how far back he started. His race pace is still really, really good. It's still really good, probably still right up there with the best, but his qualifying pace has really been lacking so far this season. So I really hope he can get a starting position like that, because it could lead to a very good race result for him. And most importantly, the Alpine team. Astro Stevo, his predictions is Hamilton for pole, Perez second, Verstappen third, Leclerc fourth, and Ricciardo fifth. Aline says Verstappen, Perez, Hamilton, Sainz, Leclerc. I can't pronounce this guy's first name. I think he's Dutch. I think it's a Dutch first name. I don't want to pronounce it because I will absolutely batter and just, get it so wrong if I pronounce this first name. But he says Verstappen, Leclerc, Hamilton, Perez, and Bottas for his top 5. Michael Rodriguez says Leclerc, Verstappen, Sainz, Alonso, Hamilton. That would be one hell of a top 5 for the race tomorrow. As just to update you guys, track temperature of 43 degrees Celsius and air temperature of 28 degrees Celsius. Of course, south of France, it's going to be very hot. There's a bit of wind, 11.5 kilometers an hour. Northeast wind, it says. And yeah, very hot day in the south of France. And I think we are in for, again, a very good session. And a close one, especially in the midfield. Denzel says Hamilton pole, Verstappen second, Bottas third. Matthew is fine, by the way. Okay, I'll try and remember that. Frank Bosselman thinks Vettel will get to Q3. I really hope he could, because that would be another spectacular performance in, what the last month has been. Just spectacular performance after spectacular performance from Sebastian Vettel. The whole weekend in Monaco was amazing. Qualifying could have been better in Baku, but the race was one of his best performances in the last few years. It was so good from Sebastian. Anyway, let's get rid of this text and get the graphics ready for you guys. course, it's not FP3, it's Q1. Q1 will be getting underway, by the way, in just over 1 minute from now. If you are new to Formula 1, qualifying 1 is 18 minutes long, and then qualifying 2 is 15 minutes, and then qualifying 3 is 12 minutes. And yeah, should be getting underway, 45 seconds-ish. About now, yeah, 45 seconds from now. Let me just get everything ready. And as well, get the dotted line out. Help point out who's in the drop zone. So, again, for anyone new watching the streams of Formula 1 in general, where that dotted line is on the left-hand side, anyone below that at the end of Q1, actually no, I've misplaced it, sorry. Let me start that again. There you go. So anyone below that dotted line at the end of qualifying, as the session gets underway right now, so there you go, 18 minutes to go. Yeah, anyone below that dotted line at the end of Q1 will be knocked out. So at the minute it says Russell, Tsunoda, Latifi, Schumacher, Mazepin. If that is to remain the case, which is very unlikely, then they would be out, and then vice versa for Q2 as well when it comes to the next 5 just above at the end of Q2. Anyway, the session is underway, and we have, and by the way, Richard77 says Max, Hambot, Perez, Norris. McLaren won race, says Verstappen, Bottas, Sainz, Hamilton, Norris. Joey Barcelona, that's a great name. Verstappen, Perez, Leclerc, Bottas, Hamilton. Shout out, please. Thanks. So I've already shouted out your name there because it really does sound great. Yeah, so we do have now cars on track already, which is great to see because practice 3 we were waiting about 15 minutes to get actual cars on circuit. That was only because they were trying to save their tyres. But on the track right now, the 2 Alfa Tauris, the 2 Alfa Romeos, the 2 Williamses, and the 2 Haases of you got what? Gasly, Giovinazzi, Raikkonen, Russell, Tsunoda, Latifi, Schumacher, Mazepin. Everyone else is currently in the pits. And hopefully we'll be getting some good times set straight away. And yeah, Pierre Gasly, the showing on the screen, was 8th in practice 1, 7th in practice 2, and then 10th, I believe, or 9th, sorry, in practice 3. So you can see Pierre Gasly consistently running in the top 10 there. Stroll and Vettel now join the track, the 2 Aston Martins, of course. So, what, got half the grid out there at the moment, and now here comes Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc in the 2 Ferraris. And the Red Bulls and Mercedes currently waiting in the pits. As now the 2 McLarens go out. Good to see that it's team by team in terms of releasing their cars. Only got 3 teams left, a Mercedes, Red Bull, and Alpine. As it looks as though the first driver to set a time will be, it's an Alfa Romeo. I don't know who, though, it is. It'll be Giovinazzi. Yeah, be Antonio Giovinazzi with the first person to go for a flying lap here. As currently we're looking at Pierre Gasly, who is backing off in the final 2 corners to give himself a good bit of clean air in front of him. Doesn't want to get held up by anyone. Around this circuit, you definitely do not want to be getting in the dirty air or even catching a slipstream of someone, because it doesn't really help you here. As Gasly starts his lap, and let's see what he can do first lap in qualifying at his home Grand Prix. Never really had in the previous couple Grand Prix here in France. He's never really had a good run here. 2018, well, he was crashed out on the first, or was it turn 3, I think it was. So never really got the chance, did Gasly, to, as Yuki Tsunoda has stopped out on track. Has he hit the barriers? I don't know, but we've got a yellow flag in Sector 1. I don't know where that is exactly. Now we have got a red flag red flag, which very surprising that we've got a red flag. But it is Yuki Tsunoda. He's gone off at... Just trying to see where that is. I think it's... Yeah, it's turn 2. No idea how he's got there, because he looks as though he's spun off before he's even got to turn 2. Here's a replay of Yuki Tsunoda. Turns in, and there you go. He clipped too much of the inside curb at turn 1, and then went in rearwards. His rear wing shook quite a bit as he got on, I think, the runoff tarmac. And here you go, replay. And yeah, he clipped, I think, also the yellow curb on the inside as well, which unsettled the car and sent him to a spin. Poor mistake. That's not what he needed. Come on, Yuki. Not what he needed at all. And yeah, the bit of the runoff there making the rear wing shake about. But yeah, such a poor start to the session for not just him, but AlphaTauri as well. He might get going again. I think he's trying to. Because it would be ideal if he could try and get back to the pits. Because if not, then it'll take longer, of course, for the team to start their work on it. I think that's what he's trying to do, is Yuki Tsunoda. But we currently have a red flag. Let me just get some text up to indicate that it is a red flag. Hold on. Let me just shrink that down for you guys. Yeah, currently red flag conditions, and Yuki Tsunoda stopped out on track after a poor mistake, you have to say. He's trying to get going again, I think, but after this amount of time, he might. Yeah, he's going to, I think, get out of the car now. He does, removes the steering wheel, and Yuki Tsunoda is out of qualifying, and he will start the Grand Prix from last position. Such a shame, but more of a shame for the team, really. At the end of the day, that is a very poor mistake from Tsunoda. Very poor mistake. And I don't think I'm being too harsh in saying that, honestly, because the mistake he's made there is basic. You know, clipping too much of a curb, that's basic stuff. You should know. And of course, they're all great drivers, but by the time you get to qualify after 3 practice sessions, you should know the limits of the circuit in terms of how much curb, you know, you can use at certain corners. He just wanted so much of that apex, which of course the apex at turn 1 is really important. You do need to get your front end in there, but you know, you don't need to be that aggressive and be hugging the inside curb that much. He was almost cutting turn 1. It was ridiculous, really, how early and aggressive he was turning in. So it was just a very silly mistake, I have to say, from Yuki Tsunoda. And I think Tsunoda gonna get out of the car? Yes, he is. I thought he was gonna sit in the car and let the tow truck take him back with him in it. But, yeah, very silly mistake there. Very unnecessary. You know, first lap in qualifying. This is the second time he's done this. At Imola, he did the same thing. Too aggressive over a curb and ended up crashing out of the session. Did a lot more damage that time than he's done this time. I mean, he's barely done any damage, really. We'll see if he has to go for a new gearbox. Doesn't really matter if he does need to go for a new gearbox, because he will be starting from the back of the grid. But like I said, very silly mistake from the Japanese driver, and they're showing it on the replay now, and just he was almost hitting the yellow cone on the inside. That's how far to the inside he was. He was way too far to the inside. And again, getting the front end into that corner, very important. But, you know, you should not be that aggressive. I think basically he's just made a very amateur mistake of turning in early or making sure to get the front end in, but then realizing that he's got too much of the front end in, and then, of course, sent into a spin because it unsettled the car. And Anthony Davidson just showing Valtteri Bottas doing it in practice on Friday. But yeah, Tsunoda out, and hopefully we'll be getting back underway soon. We've got 14 minutes and 19 seconds to go in Q1 as they now remove the car. But and yes, some of the rear wing is broken. Not a massive amount. It's not going to take that long for them to fix it. But it'll take a long time to fix his emotions after that mistake. And now we wait for the session to get back underway again. I'll just quickly mute myself just to have a bit of a cough and clear my throat. There you go. Right, let me find some let me find some other comments in the chat that I've missed in the first few minutes of the session. Dream Kev says Alonso for pole, where the first word in your username is exactly what that is. Peter King says he thinks it'll be Hamilton, Bottas, Perez for the top three. Like I said, I'd be very surprised if Max Verstappen wasn't in the top three on the grid today. Very, very surprised. And it would take yet another colossal bottle from Verstappen, which has been, unfortunately, the case so far this season for him. That's really been the only thing that's really been a downside for Verstappen this season, is that, you know, he's been tremendously quick this season, very much so in the races, but in qualifying, when it comes to the final couple laps, just not getting it together. If he was as clinical as Lewis Hamilton, Verstappen would be leading the championship by definitely more than 4 points. Probably 15 to 20 at least. So, you know, Verstappen could definitely improve still on his performance. And as I think if he starts to get into a run of things where he irons out any issues when it comes to qualifying and starts to really nail laps consistently, he's going to be very hard to stop. I mean, I do believe Lewis Hamilton is good enough to stop him, and I still do think Lewis Hamilton, somehow, some way, will win the championship this season. But if Verstappen, like I said, if he can nail qualifying a bit more than he has done this season, Hamilton's going to have to be his absolute peak to stop him. Anyway, let's get rid of that. And the session should be getting back underway in 20 seconds, it says. And once it gets back underway, I'll sync up the timer a further 20 seconds after that to the 14-minute mark. And hopefully this time, no red flags. Definitely did not expect a red flag around this circuit as the session gets back underway again. Just had to clear my throat there again, as I'm sure you guys can hear the pain. I can definitely get through this stream though. As sync up the timer right now. There you go. 14 minutes to go in qualifying one. And yeah, hopefully no more red flags. As just read in the chat to see if I've missed any predictions or anything. Don't think I have. No. Someone saying in the chat, wish me luck. Chazzer HD, if I lose the Verstappen pole bet, I give $10 to someone. Well, we'll see what happens with that as Lewis Hamilton now joins the track. Lewis Hamilton was, I think, one of the final cars to join the track before the red flag. So, Mercedes, as usual, leaving it a bit later than usual. I'll adjust that quickly so you can see that Red Bull. But yeah, nobody at the moment on a lap. Lots of people, well, everybody except Yuki Tsunoda now on an out lap here at Paul Ricard. And I think the first car to set a time, I think it will be probably the two Ferraris. It should be interesting to see what their real pace is in this session. Because I do have a feeling that if their drivers can nail the lap later in qualifying, I reckon they could get another surprise, maybe not pole position, but a top 3, top 4, which would be a surprise. Especially if you look at the results so far this weekend, as Max Verstappen overtakes a Williams of, I think that was Russell in the Williams that he overtook. As Charles Leclerc now starts his first flying run in qualifying. Let's see what he has in this Ferrari. Should be good. As he comes into turn 1, no problems there. Or through turn 2, uses as much of the exit curb as he dares. Now into turn 3, very aggressive over the entry curb to turn 3. And now through the very slow Mickey Mouse turn 6 and 7. And now comes on to the beginning of the Mistral Straight. Of course, heading towards the chicane, which braking as late as you can and nailing the apex. Very important at that chicane. As Carlos Sainz, interestingly, has actually gone quicker in the first sector than Charles Leclerc. Leclerc 51.4 so far for this lap. Sainz has done a 50.9. Already half a second quicker than Leclerc so far on this lap. So very impressive stuff from the Spaniard. It's not purple though. I think Verstappen might be going purple at the moment. We'll have to see if Verstappen ends up top. As Bottas currently on a purple first sector as he passes Leclerc, a few slower cars about to start their first flying laps. And coming to the line will be Charles Leclerc to set his first lap time of the session, and it is a 1 minute 33.1, which I have to say is quite slow. Carlos Sainz goes almost a second quicker on a 1 minute 32.2, which is about what he did in practice 3. Russell actually goes quicker than Leclerc with his lap. Pierre Gasly now goes quicker and quickest so far by 0.4 of a second over Carlos Sainz. So Pierre Gasly up to P1. Daniel Ricciardo has just gone second in the McLaren. And Valtteri Bottas, he will now come to line as Norris goes second now. Bottas obviously goes P1 by about 0.2 of a second. So Valtteri Bottas is up into first position. And then, of course, Gasly second. And Lando Norris is in third. Sebastian Vettel, impressively, goes up to fourth place, splitting the two McLarens. Lance Stroll now goes even quicker than Sebastian Vettel. So Stroll is up to fourth. Lewis Hamilton goes second, only 0.02 of a second down as Max Verstappen comes to the line and goes 0.6 quicker than Valtteri Bottas straight away as Perez now goes second out of the two Mercedes, but still half a second down. Max Verstappen just reminding the field that if they want to beat him, they need to be perfect to do so today, because Max Verstappen is in no mood to play games and to give others a chance, clearly, as he's done a 1 minute 31.001 and is half a second clear of Perez. and 0.6 quicker than Bottas and 0.7 quicker than Hamilton after just one run. I know it's only one run and it doesn't mean anything yet, but that is a very good banker. That's already, I think, 0.3 seconds quicker than what he did in practice 3. So clearly Max Verstappen in the mood so far. Yeah, Perez up to 2nd. Bottas is 3rd. And then you've got Lewis Hamilton in 4th place. Gasly is 5th. And then Norris 6th. Sebastian Vettel is in 7th place. Lance Stroll has actually had his time deleted. The Stroll is back in the drop zone. And then you've got Esteban Ocon 8th. Fernando Alonso is 9th. So Alpine have not done really a good first run there. And Ricciardo is in 10th position. Then it is Sainz in 11th. Giovinazzi is in 12th. Mick Schumacher is 13th. And then you've got Russell 14th. And Latifi 50th. And currently in the drop zone, Charles Leclerc and Kimi Raikkonen 16th and 17th. That is a massive surprise at the minute. You'd hope Charles Leclerc can go quicker, and I'm pretty sure he can. But at the moment in the drop zone, with 7 minutes to go, Leclerc, Raikkonen, and then Mazepin in 18th, and then Stroll and Tsunoda 19th and 20th. Stroll has not set a time, but I'm sure he will in a moment. Also, very impressive that Mick Schumacher is ahead of both Williamses. And with Tsunoda out of the session, Mick might actually have a chance of getting into Q2, which would be an incredible achievement, I have to say. As Charles Leclerc, like I said, is on a better lap, and I'm sure he can go quicker than he has so far. He's basically 2.2 seconds off the pace with his first lap, which I have to say again was very poor. And now he comes to the line with a much improved effort of a 1 minute 32.2, but still, I mean, quicker than Sainz, but still not that impressive, honestly. So Charles Leclerc up into P11. So Latifi now in the drop zone. Latifi, though, impressive. He's only 0.02 of a second at the moment slower than teammate Russell, who normally pounds him into the dirt whenever he gets a chance. As Hamilton is 0.07 of a second slower than Verstappen on this lap so far. So Hamilton improving. Good to see if you are a Hamilton or Mercedes fan. As Lando Norris now rounds the final corner as Carlos Sainz jumps up to 7th in the Ferrari. And Lando Norris goes up into 5th, just ahead of Pierre Gasly. As here comes Lewis Hamilton into the final corner. And bit of oversteer on the exit, but can he go fastest? Let's see if Lewis Hamilton comes to the line and goes much quicker than he did before, but he is still almost 2.5 tenths down on Verstappen, but does at least get up to 2nd and ahead of his teammate Bottas and also Sergio Perez as well. And if Hamilton can't get pole today, then he has to get 2nd. Cannot afford to be behind slower cars like Perez and Bottas. Or drivers, rather. As looks as though basically everyone is in the pits except Hamilton, Norris, Gasly, Sainz, but they are about to come into the pits. Lance Stroll has just come out of the pits to do his first proper legal lap time. Because, of course, his first lap time he did was not legal because he track extended at, I believe, with the exit of turn 6. So, hopefully, for Aston Martin can improve because with Vettel up in 8th, you got to say that he should be doing a lot better. As now we are looking at Lance Stroll, as now we've got Vettel, Giovinazzi, Russell, Latifi, Raikkonen on an outlap. And yeah, Lance Stroll should be, as long as he doesn't make any key mistakes, he should be getting into the next part of qualifying, really. I think a major shock if Stroll was ending up 17th or 18th. as Stroll, very kind he is to his tyres, even when he's going as quickly as he can, but very, very kind at the moment as he is trying not to take any life out of the tyre on this outlap as he comes through the final few corners. And that is one thing to mention today that is very important for qualifying, is because we've got the second softest compound in Formula 1 here this weekend, and that's the tyre, of course, they're going to be trying to use as the fastest tyre. Because it's so soft and this track has so many long corners, one thing you do not want to be doing is pushing too hard too soon, because if you get to that final sector and you don't have enough tyre life, which is always, or not always the case, but can very much so be the case a lot of the time, then it doesn't matter how good your first and second sector it has been. It'll all be thrown away in the final sector because you don't have any tyres left. So looking after your tyres on the outlap and not giving it, hell for leather in the first two sectors is key. If you're going to use as much of the tyre life as possible, you should be using it in the final sector once you've, looked after it kind of in the first and second sector. As Lance Stroll was on a lap, he's now backed off because of traffic. But we do have 2 minutes to go in this session. And hopefully for Aston Martin, Stroll, when he does do his actual final attempt, he can get his way into Q2. As George Russell starts his final attempt. Can he get into Q2 yet again in 2021? It's something he's been making a habit of, getting into the second part of qualifying in this Williams, as all bit of oversteer through the mid part of turn 4, turn 5. He's a quarter of a second down of Verstappen after the first sector, which is a pretty good first sector if you ask me, as he now enters the Mistral Straight, where this Williams should be at its strongest due to the high-speed nature. And his Mercedes V6 giving him all the power that he needs. He did miss the apex a bit, so it would have cost him probably a tenth of a second there. But he is still about 4 tenths down of Verstappen. So this is going to be a very good lap. As long as he has enough tyres left for this final sector, should be improving to 12th or 13th with this lap. As Russell now through turn 12 and 13. Yellow flag in sector 2. Don't know who that is for. Oh, it's Mick Schumacher, and that is going to be a red flag, and that is going to be curtains. And it is a red flag, and that is curtains for Lance Stroll, who is going to be out in 19th place, and thankfully for Russell, he will be in to the next part of qualifying in 15th. But Mick Schumacher, left-hand tyre folded up. He's obviously had an off. I don't know where that is, that particular corner. Looks as though it might be turn 6 or turn 7 where he's gone off. And yeah, it is. So it's the exit of turn 6, or between turn 6 and turn 7. So I think he might have lost the rear end, tried to correct it, and gone into the barriers. Otmar Saf now shaking his head, holding his head in his hands, and yeah, very bad news for him. And the session will not be restarted. So, out in Q1, Nicholas Latifi, Kimi Raikkonen 17th, very poor for him. Mazepin 18th, Stroll 19th, and Yuki Tsunoda 20th. But even though Mick Schumacher has crashed out and he will not be going any further, he made it into Q2. So that is a good thing for him. Very good thing. And he probably would have made it into Q2 anyway. So great job by Mick Schumacher. And yeah, hopefully can start the race from 15th, where obviously he won't be going any further in the session. So he will be starting the race probably from 15th position. Hopefully he can. Improving all the time is Mick Schumacher, as George Russell got into Q2 by 0.02 of a second ahead of his teammate Nicholas Latifi. It's a shame for Latifi because he was quite a bit up on the time he needed to improve on. So it's a shame for Latifi, but for Russell, obviously, very, very good news. As also Lance Stroll comes back into the pits. But yeah, your finishing order in Q1: Verstappen, Hamilton, Perez, Bottas, Norris, Gasly, Sainz, Vettel, Ocon, Alonso, Ricciardo, Leclerc, Giovinazzi, Schumacher, Russell, and again, knocked out in Q1, Latifi, Raikkonen, Mazepin, Stroll, and Yuki Tsunoda. Now, quickly, guys, I'm going to just clear my throat just to make sure it's nice and ready for Q2. So just wait a few seconds. And I'm back and just seeing a replay. And yeah, Mick Schumacher did exactly what I thought he did. So through turn 6, again, the Haas F1 has or Haas car rather, has a very poor rear end. Turns into turn 6, rear end can't cope with it. Spins around and hits the barriers on the left-hand side. He reverses, I think, to try and get going again, but he was never going to. And, well, the reversing actually caused him to hit the barrier. His natural instinct caused him to go into the barrier, which is a shame. But there you go. And I will say, yeah, disappointing for Lance Stroll. But at the end of the day, he should have set a good enough time initially to get through to Q2. No excuses whatsoever to not set a time, good enough to get through to Q2 by that point in the session. So I know people will say, well, Lance Stroll was unlucky. To a certain extent, yeah. But overall, no. He should have already set a lap time. It's his own fault, so he should deal with it. And, same goes for Kimi Raikkonen as well. Should have set a good enough lap time initially. If you're genuinely quick in qualifying, you don't need, to wait to the very end of the session. I've said this before with Max Verstappen. You need to be setting, if you're going to be, again, genuinely getting good grid positions, you need to be setting good lap times basically all the time. So, you can't afford an off lap and then hope that everything is rosy for you after that. But Q2 will be getting underway in just a moment. Or in a few moments' time, rather. By the way, yeah, well, it was a red flag. It was a red flag, but the session wasn't restarted, which is why I never displayed it on the screen, because there's no point displaying on the screen, again, that there was a red flag when the session was never going to get back underway anyway. But, yeah, I think Q2, honestly, it's going to be very, very close. Between, 14th and 15th, it's going to be, well, I might as well just do it now. Schumacher, of course, is going to be 15th because he's already out of qualifying. Russell, going to be 14th. Maybe 13th if someone else crashes out. But most likely 14th. So, really, there's only 3 positions at play in terms of getting knocked out, which is 11th, 12th, and 13th. I think, really, I still expect the 2 Ferraris to get through to the next part of qualifying. I'd be surprised if Leclerc ended up in P12. I think it's most likely going to be Giovinazzi, Ricciardo, and probably one of the Alpines or Vettel that gets knocked out in this session. But let me know in the live chat what do you think? Who do you think will get knocked out in qualifying too? Of course, Mick Schumacher, we know, already out. And again, Q2, 15 minutes long, and we'll be getting underway in a couple moments' time. As Sky F1 currently interviewing Yuki Tsunoda. King saying Max will be next to crash. Let's not tempt fate. Really hope that doesn't happen. I want to see an actual good finish to qualifying, which we hadn't had in so long. The last time we had a good non-anticlimactic finish was Imola. Every qualifying since has been a massive anticlimax. So let's hope we actually get a climax this time. As they're just showing the cars getting prepped for the session. Phone box chicken asks, what happened to Stroll? Did he not set a lap? Well, he did set a lap time initially. It got deleted because he track extended. Of course, went over the white lines. When did an illegal time. Got deleted, rightfully so. And then just waited to the very end to set one, and then that happened. Which, of course, yeah, it is a bit unlucky. But you should know in Formula One that those things are very likely to happen, especially when drivers are pushing as hard as possible in the fastest race cars in the world. But there you go. The session, Q2, is now underway. As we get the first cars on track, and I'll just add the next dotted line for you guys. Indicate as best as possible who is in the drop zone. So there you go. So again, anyone in between those two dotted lines at the end of Q2 will be out of the session. So at the moment, it says Ricciardo, Leclerc, Giovinazzi, Russell, Schumacher. Of course, Schumacher is already out. But yeah, if it remains that way, then that's, who gets knocked out at the end of the session. By the way, interesting to note that both Mercedes are coming out on the medium compound tyres. And the Red Bulls look as though they're going to do the same. It is the right decision because the medium compound tyre will last much longer than the soft. It still won't last, I would say, well around this circuit, but it will last much longer than the soft. So it is the best tyre to be on, without doubt. And also, Pierre Gasly, Lando Norris, and the two Ferraris on the medium. I wouldn't be surprised at all if everyone tried to come out on the medium. Well, I say that. George Russell has spoilt that by coming out on the soft. As Antonio Giovinazzi comes out on mediums. And I presume that the Alpines and Vettel will come out on mediums as well. But yeah, the medium tyre, definitely the better tyre to start on. I definitely think tomorrow the hard compound tyre will be the tyre to be on the longest. So I don't think the medium, even if you start on that tyre, I don't think it's going to, get you a very long way into the Grand Prix. And I think they still will be desperate to get onto the hard compound tyre, which again will be the best tyre for the race. And the medium tomorrow, the medium compound should do 15 to 20 laps. And then probably put on the hard to do the final 30 or 35 laps of the Grand Prix. It should be able to do that. That's most likely what the strategy is going to be tomorrow. As, yeah, Vettel is on the medium in the Aston Martin. As we've got a crosswind of about 11 kilometers an hour. And, yep, Daniel Ricciardo also on the medium. So everyone on medium compound tyres. Except for George Russell, who's on the soft. And, the Alpines are in the pit still. So we'll see what they come out on later on as Valtteri Bottas starts his first flying lap in qualifying 2. I'll just move on to some different pictures there. Yeah, Valtteri Bottas starts his first flying run of Q2. And let's see if Bottas has, compared to the rest, who are on basically they are on the same tyre. Same tyre performance. Let's see what they can do, Mercedes, compared to the rest. As Bottas now on the Mistral straight. Both have not set a purple first sector, interestingly, which is normally Mercedes' strongest sector, as Bottas runs quite wide the entry and midpoint of the chicane. And that would have cost him probably a quarter of a second. The Bottas, so 50.5 so far for this lap. Hamilton only slightly quicker, so both Mercedes are not setting that quicker lap time, I have to say. As Pierre Gasly goes quickest. Of course, he's the only person to set a lap time so far. As Lando Norris now goes up into second position. Daniel Ricciardo, was in third place, but is now Charles Leclerc. As Bottas, he will come to line now as Carlos Sainz goes quickest. Bottas only second. Lewis Hamilton, where does he go? Only fourth. That's very, very poor. Very poor for them. So we'll see what Verstappen can do. I mean, of course, the most important thing is them getting through to the next part of qualifying on the medium. But those lap times, considering the other midfield teams are on medium tyres as well, is very, very surprising. As Max Verstappen does go P1 on a 1:31.0, about 600ths of a second quicker than Carlos Sainz. As Sergio Perez comes to the line, what can Perez do? Perez goes P1. What a fantastic lap by Sergio Perez with the quickest lap of the weekend so far, a 1:30.9. 1/10 quicker than Max Verstappen. And at the moment, I mean, it's still a long way to go. We're still not in Q3 yet, but at the moment, it looks very, very ominous from Red Bull. A 1-2 at the moment. So Perez in first, Verstappen second, Sainz third. Norris's lap time has been deleted, so he's back into the drop zone. But yeah, Sainz in third, and then you've got Valtteri Bottas in fourth place, Gasly fifth. Here's a replay of Norris, and yeah, going too wide on the exit of turn 6. Good decision there by the FIA. Clear to see that he went all 4 wheels off. But yeah, Bottas 4th, Gasly 5th, Hamilton in 6th position, and then Charles Leclerc 7th, Sebastian Vettel 8th, which is good for him. Daniel Ricciardo 9th, and then Antonio Giovinazzi in 10th, with George Russell in 11th. But Norris, Ocon, and Alonso, remember, have not set a lap time. So we wait to see what they can do. Esteban Ocon, I think 2/10 down so far on Perez in the first sector. Alonso also set a decent first sector in the Alpine, clocking 202 miles per hour down the Mistral Straight. As Alonso only quarter of a second slower so far on this lap on Perez. By the way, just to note again, the 2 Alpines are on the mediums. Pierre Gasly also on another lap. And, of course, on the medium compound tyre. As Alonso all run a bit wide in turn 13. That would have cost him a 10th and a half. As Gasly not really... I mean, he's still setting a good lap time overall. But compared to his personal best, I'm not sure if it will be quicker. We'll have to see. As Fernando Alonso comes to the line now, where does Fernando go? He goes P7. A good, strong lap there from Fernando. So he's up into 7th place. And Esteban Ocon, the Frenchman, comes to the line and he goes 9th. So at the moment, both Alpines, the home team, of course, into the top 10. As now Pierre Gasly comes to the line. And Gasly only goes half a tenth slower than his personal best, but still slower. As Daniel Ricciardo now jumps up to 8th position. Let me just update that. The Ricciardo up to 8th. Lando Norris is going to set another lap time, and he goes now up to P7. So Norris up to 7th. And Lewis Hamilton now goes P1 on the medium compound tyre. 12... just what, 0.012 of a second ahead of Sergio Perez and a 10th of a second clear of Max Verstappen. That is a lot more like it. We'll see if Red Bull decide to respond to that. Don't think they will, but we'll see if they do. But yeah, Hamilton into P1, and that's where he hopes to end the session. But I still think, I mean, I'm still going to stick with Hamilton, but in terms of the car and who has the best car, by the looks of it so far, it's Red Bull. So, still not looking great, I have to say. But Mercedes also, Charles Leclerc really does need to improve. He is, half a second slower than Carlos Sainz so far in Q2, and is on the brink of getting knocked out in this session, as Alonso accidentally knocks over one of the cones. Coming into the weighbridge. That won't be a penalty of any sorts, because he did it accidentally, not deliberately. As now all the cars come back into the pits with about 5 minutes to go in qualifying 2. We just want to say again, guys, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this, as I will be live tomorrow 3 times. Firstly, 11 AM UK time for the race preview, which is 3 hours before the race starts at 2 PM UK time. And then I'll be live for the second time at 1:30 PM UK time for the race watch along, of course, for the build-up with Nib, and then the race itself. And then I'll be live again for the third time at 7 PM UK time for the race review. So again, for all of that content coming tomorrow, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for that content. And as well, hit the notifications bell, smash the like button, and share this video and channel everywhere you can. As Antonio Giovinazzi has decided, screw it, I'm going to go out on a soft compound tyre and try and get into the top 10. Which actually might end up working. We'll have to see. He's, 6-7 tenths of a second, I think, away from getting into the top 10. So it's not impossible, but we one hell of a lap, I have to say, on that tyre around this track this weekend, considering how the medium is performing over a single lap as well. So, yeah, be incredible, quite frankly, if he could do that. As Mercedes, I think, putting some new tyres on Lewis Hamilton's car there, as also Max Verstappen about to come back out on the circuit on another set of medium tyres. So you haven't seen the last of Red Bull in this session, and they're definitely going to go for another flying run here to try and, again, set a bit of a marker as to what their pace is in this session. As Leclerc just letting through a Williams there of Russell, as they're both on their outlaps. Everyone now on an outlap except for Lewis Hamilton, Sergio Perez, and Daniel Ricciardo. And now Hamilton, Perez, and Ricciardo now come back out onto the circuit, and hopefully we'll see some improved times from everyone, really. And a very exciting end here to Q2. As Leclerc here just being passed around the outside casually at the Beausset by Sebastian Vettel on this outlap, as Leclerc, like I said earlier, trying to look after the tyres, doesn't want to take too much out of it, wants to make sure that he has the tyre life left in the final sector, like I said. As Sergio Perez, interestingly, I mean, maybe they've got it wrong on the graphic, but it says he's on the soft compound tyre, is Perez. If that's true, that's very interesting indeed. As Daniel Ricciardo has also apparently gone out on the soft compound. I mean, I understand with Ricciardo because they're desperate to get him into the top 10, but not sure why they would do it with Perez. Not sure about that at all. Just adjust that picture so you can see the car better. There you go. as Leclerc now begins his final run in Q2. Can he make it into the top 10 for Q3? Something I didn't think I'd be saying, but he's been, in this session, compared to Sainz, nowhere near him, and considering his very high level, he's been quite poor, actually, considering, again, his high level and his talent level. As Charles Leclerc now comes up to the mid-sector point, he's only half a tenth slower than Lewis Hamilton through the first sector. A good first run there for Leclerc. And he now comes into the second sector as Giovinazzi has done a good first sector with the soft compound tyre. And Leclerc through the chicane. Nothing wrong there. The Ferrari very good in the chicane. Car very well suited to a chicane like that. As Leclerc has not done actually a personal best middle sector. But he is still only 4.5 tenths down on Hamilton. So if he can have a good final sector, then he might be able to make it through. As Giovinazzi is a tenth up on Leclerc's previous best. So Leclerc has to improve or else he's out of qualifying. As long as Giovinazzi can keep going as quickly as he is. As now the session is over. And now we get to see who will make it in to the final part of qualifying. As Esteban Ocon just about is getting into the top 10 at the moment, but has not set a personal best sector yet. As Leclerc comes to the line and goes P9 in the Ferrari. Will that be enough? As Antonio Giovinazzi now comes to the line. Can he get into the top 10? And no, he does not. He finishes up in 13th place. I think he lost tyre life towards the end of that lap. As Valtteri Bottas has gone up to first. So Valtteri Bottas into P1 for Mercedes. Sebastian Vettel has hit the checkered flag and he is out in 12th place. Can Esteban Ocon get through? No, he can't. He does improve his time, but he's out in P11. And I think everybody else won't be able to really do any better. Alonso stays in 8th place, does improve his time. So Alonso, for the second race in a row, out-qualifies Esteban Ocon. Good to see Alonso getting on top of things. As Lewis Hamilton improves his time yet again, but remains in second. As Daniel Ricciardo really should have come into the pits then, but it didn't. But Q2 is over, and Daniel Ricciardo, thankfully for McLaren, is through. But out in Q2, Esteban Ocon, Sebastian Vettel, Antonio Giovinazzi, George Russell, and Mick Schumacher. Meaning that into the final part of qualifying are the two Mercedes of Bottas and Hamilton, the two Red Bulls of Perez and Verstappen, the two Ferraris of Sainz and Leclerc, the two McLarens of Norris and Ricciardo, the Alpine of Fernando Alonso, and home driver Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri, who actually ended up 6th in Q2. And if he finished there in Q3, I think the French fans would go wild. As Giovinazzi comes into the pits, and obviously his qualifying not as good as what he managed 2 years ago, where he qualified, I think, in 9th or 10th place in 2019. But Q3 should be getting underway in probably 3 or 4 minutes time, and the shootout, it's going to be very exciting to see between Mercedes and Red Bull, where it's so close looking between those four cars of Bottas, Hamilton, Perez, Verstappen. Going to be very exciting to see who wins a very important battle for pole position. Again, considering that if you get Paul Ricard, very hard to lose it from then on in. Anyway, we'll get some of the things ready. But guys, keep your predictions coming in the chat. With Q3 coming up in only a few minutes' time, let me know right now in the live chat, who do you think will get pole position? And give me your top 5 prediction after, the first couple parts of qualifying that you have seen. Let me know in the chat right now, and I'll read out as many as I can before Q3 meaningfully gets underway, which will be, again, in a few moments' time. So let me just read out some comments from you guys. Aston Martin, happy for Ricciardo? Well, you'd have to be, because the last couple qualifying sessions have been rather sad and, you could argue, diabolical. Peter King says Merck is good at sandbagging. I wouldn't go that far in terms of, why things ended up the way they did in Q2, because we have to remember that Mercedes, of course, they ended up 1-2, but they set more lap times in Q2 than Red Bull did. Red Bull set their, first two with Perez and Verstappen, and then, didn't do any improved lap times after that. So Red Bull can definitely, I think, go quicker. The only question is, how much more pace does Mercedes have compared to Red Bull? We'll have to see in the session that will be getting underway in just a moment. As Sky F1 just showing Mercedes getting the tyres fitted. It should be the soft compound tyres for this session. I don't think you'll be seeing the mediums. I mean, they were quicker than the quickest Q1 time in that session, but it was only by a 10th. And it should be a lot more normally if it was, a new, fresh set of softs with track evolution. So I think, should be soft tyres going on. Right, let me read out some predictions quick from you guys. So, Jan says Max, Mark says Perez, Javier Perez-Sandy says first pole for Perez, Abshir Ahmed says Bottas, Max, Lewis, Checo, Gasly, Barat, I think it is, 24 says Bottas, Astrestivo still says Hamilton, Perez, Max, Bottas, Ricciardo. Clark says Max will always be on top. Not sure about that. We'll have to see in the session. The remaining parts of the session. Sketchy Leaf says Max, Bottas, Hamilton, Leclerc, Gasly. Vincent Otis says Bottas, Hamilton, Verstappen, Perez, and Sainz in that order. Dojome 21 says Hamilton, Bottas, Perez, Verstappen, Norris. Ewok says Norris, Sainz, Hamilton. John says Bottas, Perez, Hamilton, Max, Sainz. Dexter Hall, Bottas, Lewis, Perez, Max, Gasly. Ninja Massif Gaming says Bottas, Verstappen, Hamilton, Perez, Alonso. Jubilani says Hamilton, Bottas, Perez, Verstappen, Sainz. A lot of you seem to be going with Mercedes here, which I can't blame you at all, because we've seen this story so many times, haven't we? Where we don't think they've quite got the pace, and then they end up actually showing their real hand. Peter King says Hamilton, Bottas, Perez, Leclerc, Norris. Neil Williams says, I'm a Lewis Hamilton fan, but Bottas for pole in his opinion. Buies says, my prediction is still Verstappen pole. Denzil, Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen, his top three. David says Max, Bottas, Hamilton, Perez. Fausto says Max. Lungial, I think it is, says Perez. And Leo says Verstappen, Perez, Bottas. But judging by you guys, it looks as though it's a majority Mercedes to get pole, by the looks of it, in terms of what you guys are predicting. The most interesting part, though, is what Mercedes will it be if it is a Mercedes pole position, because it's not guaranteed that it's going to be Lewis Hamilton. Even though Hamilton was to get pole, it would be one of the most important poles he's had in the last few years, I have to say, given the current championship situation. As qualifying 3, guys, will be underway in 10 seconds from now. As we've got some cars lined up at the exit of the pit lane. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And there you go. Qualifying 3 has got underway. And the first car on track is Pierre Gasly. Then it'll be Leclerc and Sainz. And then the 2 McLarens of Norris and Daniel Ricciardo. And we'll get to see now what the teams really have, or what, you know, the team principal of Red Bull would normally say, where everyone drops their pants and sees what they've really got. as, yeah, only 5 cars on the track at the minute. Sainz, Gasly, Norris, Leclerc, Ricciardo, as I've just said. Bottas, Hamilton, Perez, Verstappen, and Alonso are still in the pits. Saying that, Alonso has now just come out. So it's just the 2 top teams who are currently in the pits waiting for a good time to send out their cars. And I think Mercedes are going to go for it now. And it is going to be the soft compound tyre, as Max Verstappen will come out on track first before those Mercedes cars. And Verstappen and then Perez will be just behind him, and then it'll be the 2 Mercedes as the last 2 to come out on track. As I think it's Bottas ahead of Lewis Hamilton. It is. And it should be, in terms of who's going to set a lap time, it should be Gasly first to set the lap time, and then Norris, and then the 2 Ferraris of Leclerc and Sainz. And then Ricciardo, Alonso, Verstappen, Perez, Bottas, Hamilton, in terms of who will set their lap times in order here in Q3. Beautiful backdrop for this session, and hopefully a beautiful ending for this session, as the 2 Mercedes now just complete the first sector on this out lap. Yeah, Pierre Gasly is now coming into the final corner. We won't get to see Pierre Gasly's lap at the moment because they're showing the 2 Mercedes instead. I really wish we could watch Gasly's lap because, again, he is a home driver. And it'd be great to see the fans cheer him on around the circuit. By the way, again, great to see so many fans at this Grand Prix. Great to see a lot more, say, normality returning to life in general. As Gasly has started his lap, and it's actually Ricciardo who is the second, the first McLaren, but the second car to start their lap. Now Leclerc starts his lap, and then soon after it will be, and now it is indeed Carlos Sainz who starts his first lap of the session. According to AWS, Max Verstappen has been better in qualifying, which is complete rubbish. They say he's been 0.1 of a score out of 10 better than Hamilton, which again is complete nonsense. No idea where they've got that from. Hamilton has outqualified Verstappen in, I think, 4 of the 6 races so far. So again, no idea what they're on about. As Max Verstappen starts his first run in Q3, can he get his first pole position since Bahrain? Something I've been saying for what feels like a long time, but he really does need pole here for his World Championship. As Max Verstappen comes through now turn 5 and turn 6. And does a 22.4 for the first sector, does not track extend on the exit of turn 6. Turn 7, of course, is just a flat-out kink. We'll see what Sergio Perez's first sector is. It's very good, but not as good as Max Verstappen. What is Bottas's first sector like? It is slower than Max Verstappen, and I think Sergio Perez as well. As Max Verstappen, actually, I think Lewis Hamilton has now done a purple first sector. Good to see there from Hamilton as Verstappen, 50.0 so far on this lap, as Charles Leclerc goes P1 on his first flying lap ahead of Daniel Ricciardo. Now it's Carlos Sainz who goes quicker than Charles Leclerc. So it's a Ferrari 1-2 at the moment. Then Lando Norris has jumped up into second position, still of course waiting for the others to set their lap time. Fernando Alonso now up to third as Max Verstappen now coming through the final corner with the DRS wide open. Let's see what his lap time is. Verstappen to the line, and it's a 1:30.3. What a lap time from Max Verstappen. As Sergio Perez, he will now come to the line. Will he be able to match that from his teammate? No, he won't. Half a second away. 1:30.8. Valtteri Bottas comes to the line, and he is third behind both Red Bulls. Lewis Hamilton comes to the line and is second, but 0.4 of a second away from Max Verstappen. So Verstappen, with 6.5 minutes to go, for the moment on provisional pole position by almost 0.4 of a second. looking very strong as Verstappen. And if he can hold on to this, this will be probably the most important and biggest pole position of his entire career. As my throat lovingly drops out there. But yet it is Max Verstappen in position 1. Lewis Hamilton second. Can Hamilton find 0.4 of a second? Going to be hard, but he's one of those drivers where it's possible. And then it is Sergio Perez in 3rd place. Valtteri Bottas is in 4th. And then Carlos Sainz 5th. Lando Norris 6th. Fernando Alonso 7th. Leclerc 8th. Ricciardo 9th. And Gasly 10th. Pierre Gasly had his lap time deleted due to a track limit violation. So he is 10th and has not set officially a lap time. But again, it is Verstappen on pole, provisional pole, with one final run to go. Can he hang on? Or can Lewis Hamilton, as he's done so many times in his career, get a pole position that seemed very unlikely, given the pace difference before that very final run? We'll have to see. As I'm not sure, actually, Gasly did go all 4 wheels over the white line there on the exit of turn 6. We'll have to see that again, but it didn't quite look as though he did to me. Again, we'll have to see a replay of that. But yeah, hopefully in the next 90 seconds, we'll see the cars back out on track. So in Sector 1, Hamilton was quicker. And then Sector 2, Verstappen only 0.03 quicker. But again, Sector 3, that Red Bull and Max Verstappen, so much quicker than anything else. He was 0.333 quicker than Hamilton in the final sector. And that is the difference between him and Hamilton. In the first 2 sectors, barely anything in it. But in the final sector, clearly Max Verstappen has a clear advantage there. Whether that's him being so comfortable in the car, whether the car is just so strong in those areas, I don't quite know. But you got to say that Max Verstappen is driving so well as of late. But can he get the pole position, which is so tantalizingly close here in France, yet so far? As Pierre Gasly, the home driver, comes out on an outlap, and he will be the first to set his final time of the session. It should be good for him if there's any yellow flags. Hopefully no red flags. And they're just showing there on the screen the previous 5 pole positions. Hamilton in 2019 and 18, and then Raikkonen in 2008, Massa 2007, Schumacher 2006. If you go back and look really at the French Grand Prix, even when it was at Manicourt, if you get pole position for the French Grand Prix, the chances of you winning go up so much compared to, say, other Grand Prix, say the Austrian Grand Prix or something like that. And again, especially around a track like this, Paul Ricard, where it's very difficult to overtake and follow another car. If Max Verstappen here can hold on, it would be vital for his World Championship. Of course, long race to go. You never know what could happen in terms of reliability or, punctures or whatever. But especially if you watch the last 2 races in France at Paul Ricard, you'll know that once you get pole, very hard to unseat that person on pole position. I'll switch back to these pictures. And now we have, with just over 2 minutes to go, all of the cars back out on track, on an outlap, and hopefully a very exciting finish here in qualifying, as Sergio Perez is midway through his lap. If Perez can hang on for 3rd, that would be tremendous. He might, though, be looking at Hamilton as, as possibly vulnerable in 2nd place. So we'll see what Perez can do. But if he can qualify at least in 3rd place, he's set himself up wonderfully for the Grand Prix. because we know his race pace is great. And around a track like this, where the tyre wear is going to be very important to look out for, and looking after tyres is going to be so important. Perez, of course, a great driver for that, so needs to be starting in that top 3 or 4 zone, which is something he's not been doing quite in the last few races, but after that win in Baku, clearly has had a massive step up in confidence, as he's just behind his teammate Max Verstappen on track, and now backs up, as of course the 2 Red Bulls and the 2 Mercedes don't want to take that life out of the tyres. As now Sainz, Norris, Alonso, Leclerc and Gasly start their final laps of qualifying here in France. And now so does Daniel Ricciardo. And Max Verstappen has now begun his descent down to turn 1. And now so will Sergio Perez, the Mexican, in the Red Bull. As Verstappen already through turn 1 and turn 2. And Sergio Perez, who we're now watching on the TV broadcast, now comes through turn 1 and turn 2. We'll see if Perez can put in a flying first sector. And we'll see what Verstappen's first sector is now. And it's a purple first sector, 600ths up on his previous best. And on the best, which is set by Lewis Hamilton. So great first sector for Verstappen. Also Perez setting a personal best first sector. Perez half a tenth up. I think on Hamilton's first sector time from earlier. So looking good at the moment for Red Bull. Saying that, as Pierre Gasly has jumped up to 4th place. What a lap that is for Gasly. The French fans will be going crazy right now at Paul Ricard, as the session is now over, but there is still lap times to be set, as Charles Leclerc now goes up to 5th. Fernando Alonso goes up to 8th ahead of Lando Norris. So the 2 McLarens, as Carlos Sainz up to 3rd in the Ferrari. What a lap by the Spaniard. As now Max Verstappen, as Norris goes up to 8th. Max Verstappen coming into the final 2 corners. He's done a purple middle sector. Surely it's pole position for Max Verstappen as Ricciardo finishes in 10th. Verstappen comes to the line. Yes, he does. 1:29.9. 3 tenths quicker than he went before. And now Sergio Perez goes up to 2nd. Perez up to 2nd. What can Lewis Hamilton do here? Comes to the line. Oh no, it's Bottas who comes to the line. Bottas goes 2nd. It's a great lap there from Valtteri Bottas as Hamilton. He now goes 2nd, quarter of a second down, but it is Max Verstappen on pole position for the French Grand Prix by a quarter of a second. What a lap by by Max Verstappen to get that. The only man to get into the 1:29s and below a 90-second lap. Absolutely brilliant from Max Verstappen. And as long as he has a good start tomorrow, it's going to be very, very, very hard to beat him. Hamilton 2nd, Bottas 3rd. Sergio Perez will be disappointed with 4th place, considering he was ahead of Bottas, but still he'll be motivated going into the Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz is 5th, Pierre Gasly 6th, Leclerc 7th, Norris 8th, Alonso 9th, and Ricciardo 10th. And the rest of the order is Ocon, Vettel, Giovinazzi, Russell, Schumacher, Latifi, Raikkonen, Mazepin, Stroll, and Tsunoda. But let me get off the screen. Here you go. It is Max Verstappen on pole position for the French Grand Prix at Paul Ricard. And like I said, as long as he gets a good start tomorrow, it should be Max Verstappen winning the Grand Prix tomorrow. Great job. Fantastic lap. So many brilliant laps he's done today. Forget yesterday. Today he's done so many great laps. And that final lap was absolutely superb. Had to set it, because if he didn't and did not improve, then Hamilton would have got pole by, what, probably a tenth or 2. If Verstappen did not improve on his previous best. And well, what an improvement it was from Max Verstappen. But there you go, guys. Qualifying is over. And let me just read out a final few comments from you guys before I go to the end of the stream. Well done to Gasly, says Abshir. Let me find some other comments here if I can. Yeah, a lot of people very, happy about Max Verstappen. Of course, you're going to be. Is Red Bull using the new Honda engine? Asks Doge. Wow, I think they are. Yes, I think they are. I know Mercedes and Ferrari powered teams put in a new engine in Baku, and I don't think the Honda powered teams did. So maybe that's what powered them, no pun intended, to pole position today. But brilliant for Verstappen. And again, his pace in the final sector was the key to him finishing on pole position ahead of the two Mercedes, who in the end were still quite strong, but not strong enough to get the all-important pole position in France. But guys, that is it for the stream today. Thank you guys for coming along for the stream today, for this stream and for the practice stream earlier. And again, do not forget to subscribe and hit the notifications bell for this channel for the content coming up tomorrow. Firstly, 11 a.m. UK time, that's 3 hours before the race. I'll be live for a race preview. Then at 1:30 p.m. UK time, / half an hour before the race, I'll be live, of course, for the race watch along with me, myself and Nib. And then at 7 p.m. UK time, which will be about 3 to 3.5 hours after the conclusion of the French Grand Prix, I will be live, again, 7 p.m. UK time, for the race review for the French Grand Prix. So again, do not forget to subscribe for that content coming up and hit the notifications bell. Also, don't forget to smash the like button and share this video and channel everywhere you can. And as well, don't forget to join the Discord server. Link below in the description. Great place that is for notifications of my videos and streams. And also, we have very nearly 500 people on that server, and it's a pretty active server, not just for F1 discussion, but motorsport in general. I think actually in the last few weeks, there's been more discussion about other motorsport than F1. So if you want to talk about just everything when it comes to F1, motorsport in general, then again, don't forget to join the ever-growing community over here. But guys, until tomorrow, 11 a.m. UK time for the race preview for tomorrow's 2021 French Grand Prix. Guys, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.